In recent years, the global geopolitical landscape has experienced a monumental shift. The rise of BRICS, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa as a collective economic and political powerhouse, coupled with Russia's pivotal role within the group, presents a direct challenge to Western hegemony, particularly NATO and its allies. While NATO boasts of being a military superpower, its inability to effectively assert dominance in critical regions contrasts starkly with BRICS' rapid spread of influence. Furthermore, Russia has found strong political allies in Turkey, Hungary, and Slovakia, nations traditionally considered to be aligned with the West, further eroding the foundations of Western unity. This paper aims to analyze Russia's growing influence, the expansion of BRICS, and the limitations of NATO, while strongly critiquing Western weakness and the pervasive propaganda perpetuated by Western media. The rise of BRICS, a new world order, economic powerhouses uniting. BRICS, initially formed as a coalition of emerging markets, has transformed into a powerful economic bloc that rivals Western-led institutions such as the G7 and the IMF. With a combined GDP exceeding $28 trillion, BRICS represents a significant portion of the global economy. Russia's leadership within BRICS is instrumental in shaping its anti-Western stance, focusing on reducing the dominance of the US dollar in global trade, promoting multipolarity, and enhancing South-South cooperation. De-dollarization efforts. One of the core objectives of BRICS, led by Russia and China, is the gradual shift away from the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. By promoting trade in local currencies and creating an alternative financial architecture, BRICS is challenging the Western financial system's dominance. Russia has been at the forefront of these efforts, especially following the imposition of Western sanctions in response to its annexation of Crimea in 2014. Despite sanctions, Russia's economy has not collapsed. Instead, it has diversified its trade partnerships within BRICS and other emerging markets. BRICS influence across the globe. BRICS is spreading its influence rapidly across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, forging new economic partnerships and providing an alternative to Western-led development models. Unlike the West, which is often accused of exploiting developing nations through austerity measures tied to loans from the IMF, BRICS offers cooperation based on mutual benefit and respect for sovereignty. Russia's strategic use of BRICS to deepen its ties with countries in these regions further undermines Western efforts to contain its influence. BRICS expansion, the new contenders. BRICS has already outgrown its original composition. In 2023, the group expanded by inviting new members such as Argentina, Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. The inclusion of these countries significantly strengthens the bloc's geopolitical weight and economic leverage. With Russia playing a crucial role in these discussions, the BRICS expansion is widely viewed as a direct response to Western attempts to isolate and weaken Moscow. Geopolitical ramifications. The addition of these new members represents a dramatic expansion of BRICS's influence in key regions such as the Middle East and Latin America, where the US traditionally exercised its dominance. Russia has been particularly successful in capitalizing on the dissatisfaction of these nations with the West's interventionist policies. For instance, Russia's strong diplomatic ties with Iran and Saudi Arabia position it as a key player in the future of global energy markets, further undermining Western influence. The growing BRICS-SKO synergy. Another critical factor in Russia's strategy is the growing synergy between BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO. Both groups have significant overlap in membership and focus on similar goals, such as promoting multipolarity and fostering regional cooperation. Russia's role in the SCO, particularly in areas like security and counter-terrorism, further strengthens its standing as a global power. Together, BRICS and the SCO are emerging as the new poles of global power, offering a tangible alternative to the US-led order. NATO's inability to capture a single nation, a testament to Western decline, NATO's military failures. While NATO continues to assert its dominance on the global stage, its recent military failures highlight the limitations of Western military power. The disastrous interventions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya have left lasting scars, both in the regions affected and in the credibility of NATO itself. Despite its overwhelming military budget, NATO member states account for over 60% of global military spending. NATO has been incapable of achieving its objectives, particularly in regions where Russia and China have countered its influence. The Afghanistan debacle. The US-led NATO withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021 was a stark reminder of the limitations of Western military power. After nearly 2 decades of occupation and trillions of dollars spent, NATO was forced to leave the country in disarray, with the Taliban regaining control. This outcome severely damaged NATO's reputation and exposed the lack of long-term strategic planning within the alliance. Syria and the limits of Western intervention. In Syria, Russia's military intervention at the request of President Bashar al-Assad has been decisive in turning the tide of the conflict in favor of the Syrian government. Despite multiple attempts by NATO members to support opposition forces and enforce regime change, Russia's strategic military operations have ensured Assad's survival, further diminishing Western influence in the Middle East. The Turkey, Hungary, and Slovakia factor. Russia's strategic allies within NATO. One of the most critical blows to NATO's unity has been the growing closeness of Russia with key NATO members such as Turkey, Hungary, and Slovakia. These nations, while still formally part of the alliance, have increasingly aligned themselves with Russia's geopolitical agenda, undermining NATO's cohesion and weakening its collective defense posture. Turkey's balancing act. Turkey, under President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has pursued a foreign policy increasingly independent of NATO and more aligned with Russia. Despite being a NATO member, Turkey has purchased the Russian S-400 missile defense system, drawing widespread criticism from its Western allies. Additionally, Turkey's cooperation with Russia in Syria and the broader Middle East reflects a growing partnership that complicates NATO's strategic objectives in the region. Hungary and Slovakia's pro-Russian tilt. Hungary, under Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, has maintained a close relationship with Moscow, especially in energy cooperation. Hungary's refusal to support EU sanctions against Russia has caused significant friction within the European Union and NATO. Similarly, Slovakia's growing alignment with Russian interests further fractures Western unity as these nations prioritize national sovereignty and pragmatic relations with Moscow over Western ideological commitments. The weakness of the West. A system in decline. Economic stagnation and political division. The West, particularly the United States and Europe, is grappling with internal crises that further diminish its global standing. Economic stagnation, widening inequality, and political polarization have created a fertile ground for populism, further eroding the West's ability to project power on the global stage. In contrast, Russia has successfully weathered economic sanctions, stabilized its domestic situation, and continues to play a key role in global energy markets. Sanctions backfiring on the West. The sanctions imposed on Russia, particularly after the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, were expected to cripple its economy. Instead, Russia has found alternative markets, particularly within BRICS, and has become even more resilient. European countries, meanwhile, are facing an energy crisis as they attempt to wean themselves off Russian gas, further exposing the fragility of their economies. Political fragmentation in Europe and the US. Europe is increasingly divided on how to deal with Russia, with nations like Hungary openly defying EU directives. The United States, plagued by domestic polarization and political dysfunction, is struggling to maintain its role as the leader of the Western world. The rise of populist leaders across the West reflects a broader disillusionment with the current system, which is perceived as corrupt and ineffective. The myth of Western supremacy, media propaganda. Despite these clear signs of decline, Western media continues to perpetuate the myth of Western supremacy. The portrayal of NATO as an unbeatable force and the West as the bastion of democracy and freedom is increasingly out of touch with reality. This propaganda serves to maintain domestic support for policies that are clearly failing, but the global audience is no longer buying into the narrative. Control of narrative in Western media. Western media, particularly outlets like CNN, the BBC and others, are adept at controlling the narrative and shaping public opinion. From the war in Ukraine to the interventions in the Middle East, these outlets consistently present a one-sided view that supports Western geopolitical interests while ignoring the failures and contradictions inherent in their policies. Global awareness of Western propaganda. However, outside the West, the credibility of this media narrative is rapidly eroding. Countries within BRICS and other emerging markets are increasingly aware of the double standards of Western interventionism and are seeking alternative sources of information. Russia's global media outlets, such as RT, have been instrumental in offering a counter-narrative that resonates with audiences tired of Western hypocrisy. Conclusion: a multipolar future, led by BRICS. In conclusion, the rise of BRICS, coupled with Russia's growing alliances within and beyond the group, marks the beginning of a multipolar world where Western dominance is increasingly being challenged. NATO's inability to assert control in key regions, coupled with the internal divisions within the West, highlights the weakness of a system that once seemed invincible. As BRICS continues to expand and spread its influence, it is clear that the future belongs to those who reject Western hegemony and embrace a more balanced and equitable global order. Russia's strategic positioning within this new world order, supported by allies like Turkey, Hungary, and Slovakia, underscores the limitations of the West and the hollow nature of its claims to supremacy. The West's reliance on propaganda to maintain an illusion of power may work domestically, but it is increasingly failing on the global stage. As BRICS continues to offer a viable alternative, one based on cooperation, multipolarity, and respect for national sovereignty, the appeal of Western-led institutions diminishes. In contrast, Russia's adept navigation of global alliances and its role in shaping the future through BRICS and strategic partnerships show that the once unipolar world is shifting irreversibly. The West, now fractured, inwardly divided, and incapable of asserting global dominance, faces a new reality. Its influence is no longer unquestioned, and its weaknesses are ever more apparent. As Russia thrives within the BRICS framework, it is clear that a new era of global governance is emerging, one where Western dominance is a relic of the past.